Chapter 10, Part 3, Freud's Dynamic Theory of Personality. Freud saw personality and behavior as resulting from a constant interplay between conflicting psychological forces that operate at three different levels of awareness. All the thoughts, feelings, and sensations that you are aware of at this particular moment represent the conscious level. The preconscious contains information of which you're not currently aware, but is easily capable of entering your consciousness, such as childhood memories, your birthday, or your social security number. The bulk of Freud's psychological iceberg is made up of the unconscious, which lies submerged below the waterline of the preconscious and conscious. We are not directly aware of these submerged thoughts, feelings, wishes, and drives, but the unconscious exerts an enormous influence on our conscious thoughts and behavior. Freud believed that unconscious material often seeps through to the conscious level in distorted, disguised, or symbolic forms. Dream analysis was particularly important to Freud. Beneath the surface images or manifest content of a dream lies its latent content, the true, hidden, unconscious meaning of the dream symbols. The unconscious can also be revealed in unintentional actions, such as accidents, mistakes, instances of forgetting, and inadvertent slips of the tongue, which are often referred to as Freudian slips. The structure of personality. Psychological energy evolves to form the three basic structures of personality: the id, the ego, and the superego. These are distinct psychological processes. The id, the most primitive part of the personality, is entirely unconscious and present at birth. It is completely immune to logic, values, morality, danger, and the demands of the external world. Think of a 2-year-old. Two conflicting instinctual drives fuel the id: the life instinct and the death instinct. The life instinct, which Freud called Eros, consists of biological urges that perpetuate the existence of the individual and the species: hunger, thirst, physical comfort, and most important, sexuality. Freud used the word libido to refer specifically to sexual energy or motivation. The death instinct, called Thanatos, is destructive energy that is reflected in aggressive, reckless, and life-threatening behaviors, including self-destructive actions. The id is ruled by the pleasure principle, the relentless drive towards immediate satisfaction of the instinctual urges, especially sexual urges. Freud saw the pleasure principle as the most fundamental human motive. A new dimension of personality develops from part of the id's psychological energy, the ego. Partly conscious, the ego represents the organized, rational, and planning dimensions of personality. The mediator between the id's instinctual demands and the restrictions of the outer world, the ego operates on the reality principle. The reality principle is the capacity to postpone gratification until the appropriate time or circumstances exist in the external world. The ego is the pragmatic part of the personality that learns various compromises to reduce the tension of the id's instinctual urges. If the ego cannot identify an acceptable compromise to satisfy an instinctual urge, it can repress the impulse or remove it from conscious awareness. Gradually, social values move from being externally imposed demands to being internalized rules and values. By about age 5 or 6, young children develop an internal parental voice that is partly conscious, the superego. As the internal representation of parental and societal values, the superego evaluates the acceptability of behavior and thoughts, then praises or admonishes. The ego defense mechanisms. unconscious self-deceptions. When the demands of the id or superego threaten to overwhelm the ego, anxiety results. If a realistic solution or compromise is not possible, the ego may temporarily reduce anxiety by distorting thoughts or perceptions of reality through processes Freud called ego defense mechanisms. By resorting to these largely unconscious self-deceptions, the ego can maintain an integrated sense of self while searching for a more acceptable and realistic solution to a conflict between the id and the superego. The most fundamental ego defense mechanism is repression, which is unconscious forgetting. Unbeknownst to the person, anxiety-producing thoughts, feelings, or impulses are pushed out of conscious awareness into the unconscious. Displacement occurs when emotional impulses are redirected to a substitute object or person, usually one less threatening or dangerous than the original source of conflict. Sublimation is a special form of displacement, which involves displacing sexual urges toward productive, socially acceptable, non-sexual activities. Freud believed sublimation was largely responsible for the productive and creative contributions of people and even whole societies. Many psychologically healthy people temporarily use ego defense mechanisms to deal with stressful events. When they delay or interfere with our use of more constructive coping strategies, they can be counterproductive. This completes this section of Chapter 10.